Hi, I'm Rebecca Bustamante, proud Filipina. With my husband, we started our own business called Shellry Associates. After that, we started HCO events to recognize the outstanding leaders in our country and in the region. This show is an extension of that, where you can learn from great minds at minsan, kwentuhan lang tayo. Welcome to the Titans! Good afternoon, Dr. Bernie.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, welcome to the show called Titans.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Bernie, do you remember the first time we met?
Remind me.
Remember we met you through Don Felbaum and we invited you to be the judge of HCO Awards. What made you decided to get involved?
Because I saw that you were going to be promoting the Philippines, and that is also the mission of CRC UNP. From the very beginning, when you do economic research, we always wanted to present the bright side of the Philippine economy, even if we're very aware that there are problems. That's why they call me the prophet of boom, because I always see, when I take a look at the glass, that it is half full. I say it's half full rather than say it's half empty.
What kept you excited or so positive about our country, Dr. Bernie?
Because we have young, growing, and English-speaking population in a world where a lot of countries are actually suffering from what they call demographic suicide. No? So a lot of countries, Japan, Korea, are disappearing from this planet.
Yeah.
While the Philippines has a very vibrant
Yeah.
education. And I think that's our number one jewel.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to educate them.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that we pay them well. But that's a challenge to the economy.
Yeah. Did you ever dream to be an economist, Dr. Bernie?
Not really. I studied accounting, and my going into economics was just by chance, because when I applied for a youth scholarship, they said, "Oh, accounting is not in our priority." So I asked, "What is the next close specialization?" They said, "Economics." I said, okay. I said, "I will study economics at Harvard," and so fortunately for me, I got the scholarship.
Yeah. And it says in your story that at the age of 21, you're really working in Harvard. How that happen?
Well, I was a product of the Japanese occupation when students were being accelerated. I finished grade school in 5 years and high school in 3 years. So I graduated at a very young age, high school. So at 14. So by 18, I already had my college degree. So when I went to Harvard, I was already a graduate student. And so since I had to earn part of my board and lodging, I had to teach. So I applied, and then they needed some instructors for the undergraduates. So that's what usually happens in Harvard. The graduate students teach the undergraduates. So I was there at the age of 21, and I got a teaching job.
Do you believe, Dr. Bernie, in fate, or you're born as very intelligent, or because you really studied to be an intelligent?
No, I think it's more perspiration. No, inspiration is only a small portion. I had to study a lot, and exert effort. I don't think I'm more intelligent than many people, no, but I think as a lesson to the young people, make sure that you take your studies seriously.
So how old are you then when you really found out what you really want to be?
Well, after taking the PhD program in Harvard, then I knew I had to be practicing economics. And so when I came back, the first thing I did was to continue teaching economics. No? And then I met other professionals. One of my schoolmates in Harvard, Dr. Justice Anislao, was going to put up a think tank called CRC, Center for Research and Communication. So I thought it was also a very noble idea of providing economic information for people in business so they can plan their business more intelligently.
Yeah.
And at the time, we were the only think tank that could do that. No? So that's why CRC became very popular, and we had many people subscribing to our information services. No?
And how were you able to start also your own school, UANP?
Well, when we started CRC, we always thought that it's a think tank that should evolve eventually into a university. That just doing research is not enough. We thought that we should influence a lot of other young people, and the only way to do that is to have, first of all, an undergraduate college, and then eventually all types of masteral programs. You know.
Yeah.
So that's why CRC became University of Asia and the Pacific in 1995. CRC started in 1967, and then by 1995 we had all the requirements of our government for a university. So we got our authorization to be a university.
You shared to us before that when you started that in a garage or something?
CRC, we
with
started.
67 students?
Yeah, we started CRC in 1967 in a very small area that was lent to us by a group called the Coconut Industry Association of the Philippines. It was really a garage. So that's where we started. And then little by little, we started attracting more students to take up a graduate program in industrial economics. Then we started offering courses for economics teachers. So that's how our educational programs began. And then we started getting companies to subscribe to our information services. So they were called Friends of CRC. So they were the source of our funding.
And how big is the school now? Like in
Right now,
Cebu,
it's a small
students?
university with 2,100 students. I mean, compared to many universities, we are small. But we are very specialized in some areas where we are making a major impact. You know? Of course, business economics, then information technology, marketing communications, the humanities. So we are known for some areas where we are among the best. We were the first university to start a college program where from the very beginning we tell our students, 18 years old, 19 years old, that when you graduate you are not going to work for any company. When you graduate you will have a business of your own. In order to do that, for the first year of their college, they already were required to present a business plan in which they will be tutored by very experienced managers to grow a business from scratch. And that became very famous. A lot of people graduating from high school who were not interested in corporate employment wanted to start up their small businesses. Now we have graduated hundreds of these young people, both boys and girls, who are successful in some business or another.
So, Dr. Bernie, can you expand more about this school?
First of all, about the think tank.
Yeah.
The think tank is a research organization, and fortunately, the one who really started it, and I just helped him, Dr. Jesse Stanislaw, worked under the top American economist in Harvard who invented gross domestic product national accounting. So he was very knowledgeable about how to use data for giving information to people in government or the private sector. You know, at that time, no one knew about data analytics, big
Okay.
data, but we were already using data
Oh, I
analytics.
see.
So we were examining all the information about the economy, about industry, and that was in great demand from the private sector because they did not want to make their plans without information.
Yeah.
And so that's why we had hundreds of companies subscribing to the research that was being done by Dr. Stanislaw and a group of young economists whom he was training.
So during Corazon Aquino also, you're so involved with the government, right? So can you also
Yes.
expand on that?
Well, I was not directly working for the government. I was just appointed to be in the commission that drafted the Philippine Constitution. So in 1986, I was among the 50 individuals appointed by President Aquino then to draft the Constitution that we now have.
Yeah.
It's called the 1987 Constitution because it was approved by the people in referendum. Even with Marcos, whatever limitations he had, he also turned to some of us for advice on economic policy. So starting with Marcos, I was a consultant of all the presidents. From the outside, giving them advice on what economic policies would really promote the good of the economy. All the way to the present, I'm helping the technocrats of the administration by giving advice on specific areas, whether it is fiscal policy, agricultural policy. So that's my main contribution to the government. From the outside, to give advice to the government about what is the wise policy to follow.
When you were in Harvard, Dr. Bernie, what was your biggest dream Philippines to be?
Well, at that time, that was in the early 60s, the Philippines was considered one of the most promising economies in Asia, next only to Japan.
Exactly.
So we were really quite advanced. Our neighbors were really backwaters. You know, Singapore, Hong Kong, they had nothing. But, as all will remember, little by little, from the most promising economy of Asia, we became the sick man of Asia by the end of the last century. And so that was our great disappointment. And the reason was, despite all the advice we were giving to the leaders, the atmosphere then was against agricultural and countryside development. Everything was focused on Metro Manila. They tried to develop all types of industries by all sorts of protection that were inefficient. And they did not have the resources to build farm-to-market roads, irrigation systems, all the things which our poor farmers needed. And so poverty resulted. And that's why we became the sick man of Asia with a very high rate of poverty. And now we're seeing the Duterte government spending more and more on infrastructure, not in Manila, but in the countryside. You were just in Cagayan de Oro.
Yeah.
The roads there are being improved all the way to Bukidnon and other places. So we have hope. Now we are paying attention to the countryside. When we say that there are 20 million Filipinos who are going to bed hungry every night, that's true. We have a poverty incidence of about 21%. 75% of those poor people are in the countryside. So if we don't invest in the countryside, we will never reduce poverty.
So what's your special message then to Filipinos, especially in the provinces, rural area, what they should do to really change?
Well, the first thing is to the people who are in Manila, get out of Manila and go to Iloilo, to Davao, to Angeles City. There's so many other areas that are more livable than this hell we call Metro Manila, no? And so that's the first advice. Disperse into the regions. And then for those who are already in the regions, especially those who come from farming families, some of them should stay in agriculture. That now that the government is spending more infrastructure, they can make a living out of farming. So I don't like this idea that everyone in the countryside, the children of the farmers, all want to go to the cities and take up courses that have nothing to do with agriculture. I think we need a lot of people who will apply their intelligence and their skills to agriculture. There are already signs, as I said, that the government is now spending time and resources improving the roads, the farm-to-market roads. So that's very important, irrigation systems.
Are you happy now where Philippines situation?
Yes, they were definitely in the right direction.
Yeah.
Outsiders are the ones telling the world that the Philippines is one of the most promising economies today. So from the sick man of Asia, we have become one of the most promising economies. A recent study from Oxford Institute, so Oxford is one of the leading universities, it listed the 10 most promising emerging economies in the next 10 years. And do you know, number 1 is India. Number 2 is the Philippines. Number 3 is Indonesia. Number 4 is China. So we're already number 2 among the most promising emerging economies. We have a very competent group of people who can manage the central bank, the budget.
You're such an inspiration, Dr. Bernie. What's your best advice then for this generation, for us, that we can continue whatever we want in this world?
Well, first of all, to the so-called centennials and millennials. You know, the millennials are those born after 1980.
Yeah.
And the centennials, those born, the so-called Generation Z, born after 2000. So the first thing is to listen to Pope Francis, who's talking a lot about the youth. And the first thing is, you are not the future. He doesn't like the expression, the youth are the future. That's not correct. You are the present. In your youth, you can already do a lot of things for your country. So let's not talk about the youth being the future. That is where I want to see young people already giving to others even when they are young.
Dr. Bernie, we've been dreaming to make Philippines a first world country on or before 2030. You think that's possible?
It is possible. In the next 20 years, we will be growing at 6 to 7%. So if that happens, and this is mostly from overseas workers remittances, BPO, IT, domestic tourism, logistics, these are the so-called sunrise industries. And they're there, they will be sustained. Whoever is president, these industries will grow. And that will help us increase our per capita income to a level where we will be close to where South Korea is right now. I'm sure you've traveled to South Korea, and that is our vision of the Philippines 20 years from now.
You mentioned about OFWs. Do you think OFWs should just come back to Philippines and just work here?
Not necessarily, because precisely most countries have a dire need for workers because they're disappearing from this planet. They're not producing babies. And they need Filipinos. Filipinos are usually preferred over other nationalities.
Yeah.
So which means that even if we are able to eradicate poverty here, you will still have millions of Filipinos going abroad because they are the most desirable workers. And Filipinos, you know, want also to be able to taste living in San Francisco, in Madrid, etc. We are a very global people. So that will continue. Even if poverty is eradicated, millions of Filipinos will still go abroad, not by necessity, but by choice. I'm sure some of your sons will decide to stay in Toronto because Canada, for example, is very attractive in terms of social policy. I have dozens of relatives who are all over the world because they find that they can, even if they are doing well here, they can always find higher incomes in other countries precisely because they are very desirable workers. So overseas workers will be a permanent, that's a part of Philippine life.
So last question, Dr. Bernie. What's your best message best message to all Filipinos around the world in order to be part of what our dreams become first world?
Well, my message to them is think of what you can do for the Philippines, even if you do not come back. Of course, I would like to see a lot of people come back here and use the talents that they have acquired in other countries. This has happened to Korea, this has happened to China, this has happened to Taiwan. They sent a lot of people to study abroad and they went back. So that's my first message. Those who are abroad, if you find what I say about the Philippines attractive, that we will be a first world country, come back at some point in your life so that you can contribute your talents to the Philippines. Now, those who are abroad can always continue contributing their remittances, so to help the relatives, etc. And those who are already in the Philippines, work hard so that your specific industries will become productive, so that first of all, we can serve the Filipino consumer, and if we are able to compete with our neighbors, then we can export our products to China and other countries.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Bernie.
Okay, sige, Rebecca.